Why do you think that a lot of the tech recently, right, or historically have been a lot more corporate internal teams heavy, less agencies? And where do you see kind of the trend going? Because, the agency segment industry is huge, the third party. And it's very easy for people to immediately just focus on internal corporate and TA teams. And a lot of the ATSs and the OG softwares have been very, very biased there. So why do you think that was? Where do you see the industry going? And what are you most excited about in the third party space?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great question. And that's kind of something we asked like early on as well. We go like, why is there this just big kind of gap in the space? There was like a few tools obviously that were out there, but what we wanted to build, it was very, very little that we saw out there that looked kind of compelling and almost nothing that I would have considered, let's call it A tier software. I said at best, there's a B tier option in the space, but mostly C and D tier kind of software option. I go, why is that? And we've learned like a couple of things. So one is just like on the straight up, like, where do VC dollars go? They go to historically, and this is changing, but historically VC dollars funnel into companies that can prove, $1 billion plus exits or a 50 or 100x, outcome for their investors, right? And internal TA is really easy to prove that out. Now that space is kind of oversaturated as a result, but in the 2010s and, especially during COVID, kind of when VC dollars were sort of falling from the sky, those internal TA teams, like Gem, for example, like they raised crazy amount of money, most of which never were able to kind of grow into the valuations that they raised at. But the internal TA market it's bigger. Even though the agency market, I agree with you, it's a big market. The internal TA team is, several times larger just in terms of just number of recruiters that are internal versus external. So it's just easier for VC dollars to find their way there. And so more tech got developed there. So that's reason one. The other reason is I think we're in an interesting time now because we're finding buyers are now more eager. Even 3 or 4 years ago when we were just starting out, it was harder to sell. I think that agency recruiters were less inclined or less eager to adopt like new technology. Like you had a lot of folks who were really set in their ways. Hey, I've been recruiting since the 90s and we did it this way. I adopted LinkedIn Recruiter, but like that's kind of where it ends. I don't really need anything else. I've been successful my whole career, blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden they are seeing quite literally AI agents that can go and source a list of candidates. That's pretty good. It's not, maybe perfect yet, but the rate at which it's gotten good. I think this, kind of the AI revolution, if you will, has kind of kicked a lot of recruiters, the pants a little bit to be like, hey, like you have to invest in new technology or you will be made redundant. So I think there's a big renewed kind of eagerness for them. So I think the timing now is better to be selling into agency tech, whereas a few years ago, I think it was really tough. I know personally of a ton of companies who tried to sell into agencies and failed and pivoted their company to then sell into internal TA. So far, we haven't felt the need to kind of become one of those companies. But yeah, I think those are a couple of really interesting factors, both of which now I think are changing.